All three presenting PhD students are right now studying at a university here in Budapest, but they are all from all around the world. We're going to be starting with Biamba Suranyamku's presentation. She's going to be talking about coping with academic stress, my doctoral journey in Hungary as an Asian student. Thank you.
Hello everyone. My name is Bimba Suranimko. I'm a PhD candidate at the Faculty of Education at ELTE, and today I'm going to present about the coping with academic stress, my doctoral journey in Hungary as an Asian student. So first of all, thank you for this conference, because one of the theme of the conference was the mental illness in young researcher. So I thought, it's a good opportunity to talk about my stress as a young researcher. So that's why I have chosen this topic. So today I'm going to talk about the autoethnography method, my background, cultural transition, academic challenges and stress, and impact of pandemic on academic life, and navigating academic stress amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, and the conclusion. So in this research, I have specifically chosen the autoethnography method because this method is more about talking the self-reflective autobiographical narratives. So when we are talking about this stress, it requires persons, emotions, and experience. So I put myself as a data in this case, and I'm through this method, I'm trying to contribute or give an insight of how this stress in the doctoral journey. So beginning of my background, as you can see, I'm from Asia, I'm from Mongolia, and so my background is totally related to Asia. Before 2019, I have never stepped on European continent or Hungary. And so I finished my bachelor's Mongolia, I worked in Thailand, I finished my master's in India. So it was all about Asia before 2019. Then after 2019, I got an opportunity to receive a stipendium Hungarian scholarship in Hungary, and I would like to take this opportunity to thanks to Hungary, the country, and thanks to all of you, because I wouldn't be here without this scholarship. So there was a big transition, cultural transition from Asia to Europe, for example. In my country, of course, we have a different language, the Mongolian language and Hungarian language. And in a new environment, I have a barrier to speak with the Hungarian speakers. And of course, our cuisine is different. In Mongolia, we have this, we are really deeply meat eater, but Hungary, I think it's quite light meat eater. So in that case, we have a difference. And arts and culture in my country, we are purely dependent on this nomadic culture. So from time to time, from season to season, we just travel around in my country for herding the goats, sheep. So that's my culture. But in Hungary, it's the opposite. You are quite settled down. Your history is, your capital city, your country has been developed from a long time ago. But in my country, if we look at the buildings, it has been built like 1940s or 1950s during the socialism time. So our buildings are not ancient comparing to Hungary. That's just an example, of course. And our social customs is also different. For example, in my country, the hospitality in my country is very important. For example, when we're having guests, we respect the person and we actually take the person to the altar of the house. That's how we are respecting. And the offering the drinks and the food is very, very important. And the way you are treating the guest is very important. But I think on the opposite side, the Hungary, I think the European norms is quite chilled. It doesn't matter how old you are. But in my country, the age is very important. If you are elder, like 80 years old or 70 years old, that person is very respected, and that's how my culture is. And in terms of the social structure, it's also, I found it very different because in my country, we are more community-based when we are doing something. But in Europe or in Hungary, it's more individualism. So let me give you an example on during the pandemic I have noticed. So in my country, we were wearing masks to protect others. But in Hungary, they were wearing masks to protect themselves. That's the opinion I have received my colleagues. So I guess there is a slight difference. When I came to the Hungarian academic environment, and it was also a very different setting from my country. So for example, in my country, we are dependent on like hierarchical student-teacher relationship. So in the classroom, we have to ask for permission to go to the restroom or to go outside. It's always about asking the permission in the classroom. And we also focus on the repetitive learning, like memorization, and we respect for the authority. So in the classroom, the teacher is the main authority, and she's the authority. She has the authority to control the classroom, and we, as the students, have to follow her guidance. But on the contrary, I found it challenging to adjust to the Hungarian academic environment. It was more about independent research, and it was more about like equal conversation between my supervisor or professors, between me. So it was, let me give you an example. One time, I came to meet my professor, one of my professors, and I was chewing the gum because I had a really bad mouth. Then I told him, I'm sorry, professor, because of chewing the gum. And in my country, this is very disrespectful if I'm chewing the gum in front of my professor. But in Hungary, my professor said that, the Hungarian professor said, no worries, it's okay it's up to you. If you chew the gum, you can eat food, you can drink beer. That's very shocking culture to me because that's never something I have heard from my Mongolian professor. And in the beginning, it was hard to adjust, but slowly, step by step, I'm adjusting to it. And the next example is one of my professor. I always call him Professor Gabor. And he asks me, Bimba, can you please not call me professor? And I said, Professor, I cannot call you without calling you professor because that's in my culture. We always say Professor Thiri, Professor Adrian, Professor Bimba. So the Hungarian professor said, please exclude this title when you are talking with me privately. And I still cannot lose this culture when I'm in a Hungarian academic environment. And of course, I have gained some challenges through in this academic life. And first of all, it's hard to, we take the courses and meeting the deadlines. So my academic life in Hungary started in 2019. So I had to do this list of things, like conductive, extensive research to develop my dissertation and teaching responsibilities. I have to gain certain credits for the teaching, and I have to attend the conferences this is one of the duty for the doctoral student to deliver her research through the conferences and through other panel discussions, etc. And one of the, actually two of the big challenges I have faced was that the publishing articles. This is the requirement of ELTE to publish 3 articles. It was very difficult, to be honest. One publication takes 1 year almost. And if you get rejected, then you have to extend it and you have to work on it. And I think many of doctoral students can relate to this. And after this journey, during this process of journey, I found out that balancing an impersonal personal life and academic life is very difficult. And during this journey, I found out actually I lost my personal life. I was focusing on my academic life, most likely. And even though when I'm having a coffee with my friends in my free time, I feel this guilty. Like, oh my gosh, I could not read that article. Oh my gosh, I couldn't do this research. So I found out that this is, this in a way, it was building a stress in my mind, which I barely noticed. And of course, the anxiety comes up with this stress, and that's something I have faced. And dear COVID-19 pandemic, beginning of 2020, actually after my first semester in doctoral studies, I was preparing for my second semester, and I was kind of happy, I gained some experience in my first semester. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, now I'm kind of adjusting to this Hungarian academic life. I'm kind of prepared for my second semester. Boom, no. The pandemic hit and lockdown started. And that time I was living in a dormitory with hundreds of students. And, I was living on the 5th floor. So you can imagine from the 1st to 5th floor how many students you're in. Like in one floor, there are 30 students or 20 students minimum. And we used to use one kitchen. And from offline to online, we shifted the study form, and which actually bring this kind of lonely environment to study for. You're no longer studying with your peers. And that time, because of this scholarship, my financial situation purely dependent on scholarship. And if I go back to my country during the pandemic, the regulation required that I need to cancel my scholarship for the period of time I'm staying in my country. So which actually, again, contributed to my stress that I need to find a work if I go back to my country. Of course, and as an intercultural student, I was having this, anxiety of living alone during the pandemic time. We all experienced, and so you can imagine how my situation was. And more specifically, for the locals, it was easier, but for me, the closing the border was the very scariest moment, because that's time I get to know, oh my gosh, I'm not going back to my country. If I am going back to my country, I need to be in the wait list. So these types of factors actually contributed more anxiety level, more stress, and you can understand this. The loneliness is starting to become like building itself in my mind. So you might be wondering, I have overcome this situation or etc. But no, in the beginning of the end of pandemic, I actually failed. It was really hard to navigate through it. And I realized that I, as I mentioned before, that my personal life was actually very lost and full of stress. So then finally the pandemic ended. So I was trying to build myself. I was trying to gain myself. And that's why I actually started not focusing on the academic life. Instead, I focused on my personal life. So I started doing this watching this YouTube personal development videos and the guidance on random things. But it's more related to planning, organizing my life. So I started reading some books and started my French studies, to be honest. And I restarted doing yoga, and I found out that the yoga is very important for our mental health. And, it kind of encourages you to do more something in life. And I focused on my part-time job. I focused on building habits, and I started planning my life on Notion. I think many of you or some of you might have heard the second brain. So it's a very interesting concept because, once your brain is not focused or messed up or it's busy thinking, you kind of put your brain in the technology or in the apps. So I started using this concept, and I started using this Notion app, which kind of acts as my second brain. So whenever I have something, I put it there. Whenever I have some links, pictures, I put it there. So as you can see from the picture, this is how my daily life is. So when I'm reading something, I put it there. When I'm doing yoga, like everything is included in this application, which kind of helped me to build my planning and organizing my life. So here are some pictures, examples that this is the books that I'm reading, these are the links. So I found out this Notion application to use as a second brain is very interesting. At the same time, it was very productive, effective in my case. And within this process is step by step, not fast. So from my first year, this is my almost 5th year, so I'm like kind of slowed down in my stress, because of my this depression. So but step by step, slowly I kind of finished. I've managed to do every requirements that is required by ELTE University, and only the missing thing is my 3rd publication, which is going to be published soon, and pre-defense and the final defense. So the conclusion, I found out, so I put myself as a data for this research. And I found a similar pattern by using the autoethnography method, that I found that Asian students, in my case, Asian students seek more silence than delivering or talk about this sensitive topic, because that's how I managed myself. I was being very quiet through my stress, but after now overcoming situation, I'm brave enough to talk about myself. And at the next important thing that I found, that is because of this stress, because of this depression, your academic achievement slows down comparing to the student who has a less or who doesn't have a stress. And I found the lessons I have learned is that I'm still trying to overcome my stress, but I'm still also trying to balance my academic life and personal life. And please, if you are considering to be a PhD student, please focus on your personal life rather than academic life. And thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation. Our next one will be from Adriana Estrella Pereira on the digital transformation, a pathway to connect higher education institutions to the requirements of increasingly digitalized, interrelated, and globalized societies. Thank you.
So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, better. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. So she really mentioned my topic. I'm going to talk about digital transformations. But can you hear me because I'm kind of here? Or I need to be here? Here's fine? I need to be closer. Okay, good to know. Okay, so I'm basically going to focus on digital transformations, and maybe as a concept that needs to be adopted by institutions, especially by higher education institutions. So let's start. So the content is going to be very simple. I just put 3 main steps for the content of this presentation. The first one is trying to explaining what I mean by digital transformation, not what I mean, but the actual concept, what is that? Supporting digital transformation, how can we manage to support and to make it work, especially in institutions, in higher education institutions. And the third one is the key points that you need to be considered to digital transformation happen in this institution. Just a bit of the background. Last year, I was working on a UNESCO project from Latin America in an institution called UNESCO ESALC. That's basically the International Institute for Higher Education in Latin America and Caribbean, and we participate in a project that englobed 4 countries: Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Venezuela. And we had 2 main parts in this project: a qualitative research and a quantitative research. The quantitative one was related to a student survey that was actually the final step, and 3 interviews in each of the countries. So these interviews were meant to be done with 3 representatives of each of the countries. First one, it was a government representative. In case of most of them was actually a representative of the Ministry of Education. The second one is a representative of an association of higher education institutions that were public, just public higher education institutions. And the third one was from public higher education institutions. Okay, that's the main background that I want to talk about. And I'm Brazilian, and I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but I was responsible for the Brazilian part. And as the only Portuguese speaker among these countries, I was responsible for the whole literature review related to Brazil, and it was in Portuguese, because we're talking here about Latin America. So let's go try to understand digital transformation. I'm gonna be kind of repetitive here, because what's the main point about trying to understand what digital transformation means is it's not the same as digitalization. That's probably the easiest way to try to understand what the meaning of digital transformations. Digitalization is basically and simply you add digital tools to your workflow. Relatively simple, but digital transformation needs to be deeper to be considered as effective. So need to be a strategic plan, need to be done in advance, need to be thinking about the future. It needs to englobe and embed all of the people that are related to each institution. That's maybe the most challenging part about developing a digital transformation process. And that's why I couldn't find in these interviews that it's not actually being addressed as it could be by most of the educational institutions that we interviewed, at least. Of course, I put some reference related to business too, because it's not just about the digital transformation, not just about education, not just about higher education, but it's a phenomenon that was very much pushed by the COVID. Before COVID-19, we were in one world that was being digitalized, but the impact of COVID made everything started to think about how can we survive, how can we live, how can we keep doing our things that's supposed to be done without the physical presence, without this contact that we are having now. So educational institutions, so business, so industries needed to rethink their model to start to be more digitalized and to be more present in social media, as we discussed before, and try to make the business keep running even without the physical presence as we have. Of course, for educational scenario, it put a lot of challenges, but also put a lot of opportunities. In the same way that we couldn't reach the people, couldn't reach the students that we'd like to, we needed to find a way to do it. So we needed to have a lot of investments, like the investments in the country that we, at least in Latin America, went like 4 times as before. So people needed to think about infrastructure, people needed to think about, not just about the university infrastructure, but also the students, and that's a key point that needs to be always kept in mind when we are talking about digital transformation. If the students, if the people that we are planning to achieve are able to reach our content, sorry. Okay. So, of course, this whole process increased the competitive side of higher education, the education in general, and make people that couldn't be achieved before be achieved, as providing that the governments and that people have the necessary infrastructure to access. That was found as a real challenge. One thing that I forgot to mention, that part of the student survey that we did in these countries always related to 3 universities in each country. The first one was one university that needs to be public in the central area, so if we can compare here to Hungary, would be in the capital, would be in Budapest. A second one would be a public one that would be also in the central area. So we have two in the central area, one public, one private. And the third one needed to be in the countryside. That could be public or private, but most of the times private institutions in these countries that we are studying here, were studying there, did not have private institutions in the countryside because it's not financially reasonable to go there because it's smaller places, it's smaller money to go there. So how can we support digital transformations? Basically, especially during COVID and after COVID, the availability of educational technologies increased a lot. One proof was our presenter here, we're not just talking about education in your presentation, but the thing is that COVID and after that, we had a boom on what is gonna be available. So a lot of companies started to find a way to make money, and education was one of them. So availability of technology is not a problem. The problem is, how can we make this accessible for every student? How can we, even for the universities, because it demands a huge amount of investment, especially when we are talking about self-financing universities or government finance universities too. So it needs to be addressed. And the third point is, we are talking about a tradition, a university tradition that comes from way, way behind. So teachers needed to adapt to the new reality, and the students too, of course. But the students, most of the time, are from younger generations, so we are kind of used to the idea of need to improve and need to learn more. But the teachers, that they were 70, 60 years old, 50 years old, maybe it was more challenging for them to get the tools and get the knowledge to advance and progress with these new challenges. One thing that's really important, and it was found is really important in this research, was that, first of all, it's not an easy process, and second one, we need to always keep data about everything that you are doing, because there are too many possibilities, there are too many different tools that need to be used, and the only way to see if that's working is if we keep assessing, if we keep providing data, if we keep researching. So it's kind of a dual responsibility of the university and of the institutions in general to go to provide the access, to provide the technology, to provide the initiatives, but they also need to assess that, because there are too many things happening. Probably a lot of the initiatives are not going to be as effective as they wanted to. So that needs to be a full-time research and initiative. Like a circle. You research, you try to do it, you assess, and then you adapt to go back to the square one at some point. One thing that I really like to mention here is the ethical considerations. Most of the time when we are talking about technology, we are talking about privacy issues in the ethical considerations. But when we are talking about, especially in this massification idea of higher education, when the institution provide a different way, a digital way to access to education, they always need to have in mind the students' financial conditions. Are the students able to access all the provided resources that the universities are doing? That's a real thing that needs to be in mind in the leaders, in the directors, in the coordinators, because it's not ethical if your students are not able to access the technology. I mean, some of students are and some are not. You are not providing the same education, so you are starting the segregation, the separation at the beginning, what of course the universities do not want to. That was particularly challenging when we were interviewing the public sectors in Latin America, because we are talking about the education that's not being paid. Most of the countries in Latin America, at least Brazil, Argentina, and Venezuela, and Chile, the higher education are not paid. When you go to public institutions, it's completely financed by the government. So are the students that are not being able to pay, or that don't need to pay, able to access the resources that you are providing? So that was very nice initiative, for example, to give tablets and cell phones and even computers, not give, but renting for the students that didn't have access to be able to engage in the initiative there. So the kind of final step that I told you that will be kind of repetitive, the key points that need to be taught when we are talking about digital transformations. First of all, the teacher empowerment, because the teacher needs to learn. And one thing that I think that's one of the most important, going back and forth, one of the most important is that the whole culture about digital transformations, the whole culture of the university need to change to the process of digital transformation should be effective and to actually change the lives that you want to change. Because, as I mentioned in the beginning, digital transformation is not just about implementing a new technology. It's not just about trying. It's about planning. It's about thinking about the future. So considering that the technology is always changing, we now have, for example, in the time that we started this research, there was no ChatGPT. Of course, it was AI. There was AI before, but it was not as famous as it is now, and not as powerful as it is now. So these things are changing all the time and changing too much all the time. So we need to change the culture of the university. We need to change the culture of the educational systems to be able to adapt to the realities that are constantly changed. So maybe that's the most important thing. You need to put this mindset as innovation and changing, and you cannot be in the same place. This lifelong learning idea, we need to have this in mind. You need to put that in the systems, in the institutions, and in the teachers too. As I mentioned, the cultural shift is one of the most important things. And of course, third one that maybe need to be always stressed is the idea of the leadership. The institution itself, if there is not a push from outside, is going to keep doing the same. You're going to keep doing the same things at the same thing, and the same way forever. That digital transformation is not a new thing. Didn't start after COVID. But the push of the COVID make everyone thinks about it. So the leadership and these firm posts that need to be done for the leaders about thinking what is going to happen in the future and how can we adapt need to always be stressed. In another thing, okay, that's the last one. I keep saying there's a lot of interesting things that we need to be addressed, but the last one, I swear, is the collaboration part. As I mentioned, there were too many opportunities. There are too many new technologies every day. So the key point is there's no time to try everything. So the point of organizing these interviews with the Association of Universities, the representative of Association of Universities, was that the universities need to collaborate between themselves. Because once you try something, you can share with someone that have the same culture. You need to have these kind of discussions to present what is going on and how is it affecting your community. Without this culture of collaboration, there is just too many things and people are just going to be swapped in too many possibilities and nothing's going to happen. So, as I promised, that was the last thing. I think I repeated as I wanted to say. I think I made my point about the relevance and the significance of digital transformation for universities. I keep talking about universities because that's my main area in my PhD studies, but it's also very important for basic education too. We need to make schools keep advancing in this digital world because it's definitely unavoidable. So thank you very much. That was the presentation. And I keep talking about my research in UNESCO. So this is the title of the article. It's already published. If you are interested, just go there, and I'll be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our last presentation before our lunch break will be from Tiri Piao Gyo about epistemological beliefs and teaching learning perceptions, a systematic literature review.
Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about my PhD dissertation title and the background story of why I'm doing this. To be honest, when I was submitting the abstract, I was doing this systematic literature review because I'm at this point of my PhD journey. And when my friend Bimba invited me, like, share this news with me, we can participate in this conference thing. And I was like, okay, why not? And I submit my abstract. And then I just found out recently that this conference is more like a diverse setting. It's not like the previous conferences that I had attended. Because last night I was thinking, like, preparing, there will be a little game at the end of my presentation. So preparing that game, I was thinking, I have never attended a conference with such diversity like this one. So I was thinking, would it be so boring if I just stick to my systematic literature review and my topic? Because I am sure not every one of us here is from education setting, or I don't know, higher education, basic education, in an education arena. So before we start talking about anything else, I would like to start from inspiring from Bimba's story. Why I do PhD? Because just last night when I was really thinking, what am I gonna talk tomorrow, and what to say, how to make it interesting? Because I am always the audience. I'm also the audience, and I suffer from boring presentations, to be honest, because I don't know. I think I'm not diagnosed, but I think I have ADHD or something, some sort of this disorder. I cannot focus, so I really feel the boredom, and I don't want to bore you as my audience. So let's start from the personal story. Why I do PhD? Because like last week I attended a workshop in my university from my program, and one of the PhD students complained that the supervisors, the PhD supervisors, they should guide their candidate to the workplace to find a job. And she said that, what are we gonna do after PhD? And I kind of disagree with her, because we are adults and it's our choice to enter this, I don't know, miserable life or whatever, fabulous, wonderful journey, whatever you call it. And I keep thinking, like, we have different background stories and different reasons for doing PhD. And my reason was, that time, before I started PhD, was just simply because I was a teacher educator, or teacher trainer, if you want to call. I was a teacher in a university of education where we produce future teachers for basic education. And to climb the career ladder, because I was at the university working as a teacher, I need to have a PhD. I was just simply following that path, and I started doing PhD in my country. And the cultural differences, of course. I never feel like I belong to my own culture, because we have to show great respect to our teachers and many other social interactions which don't align with my philosophies. And I felt really stressful, and I thought I couldn't do it anymore, and I was ready to give up. That's the time when I saw the announcement of Stipendium Hungarian scholarship announcement in my department. It says teachers from Ministry of Education can apply for this, and I was, let's give it a shot. And here I am, and that's the beginning of my journey. And why I want to present here in this conference and talk about all these, blab about these things, is because I would like to connect with people who are in the same stage of life with me. I hope most of us are PhD students, or some of you are considering doing PhD. And there is a joke about it. After I started doing PhD in my country or in Hungary, my friends, my former colleagues, my classmates, my former persons, they approach me and ask, how is it? Is it worth? Should I do a PhD? And I always joke about it. I said, if I don't like you or if I hate you, I would encourage you to do a PhD because it's worth it, do it. But if I love you, I would say, well, up to you. This is the pros and cons. So that's why I'm here talking about these. And why this topic? I'm not sure if all of you or many of you are familiar with epistemology or epistemological beliefs. because I was not. I don't know what it is. And then why did I choose this? Because since in my young age, I really like to think and question everything. That's why I have a title. Just after arriving in Hungary and learning Hungarian, I learned a new term, kokuk toyás. And then I realized that, wow, that's me. It's an odd one out. That's the label I got since my young age. And that's why I'm always thinking and figuring things out, and I want answers to everyday questions. I have so many questions, and I want to know how people think and why do we understand, how do we understand the word knowledge? Or I don't know, how do we see knowledge, and how do we know something? How do we know things? And how it is related with the teaching learning perception, which means our belief, our perceptions, our thinking about teaching learning situations, the role of a teacher, the role of a student, how a teacher should react, what are our duties, responsibilities. So there is a strong connection according to the previous research, and I really wanted to do that. Because first of all, the first variable of my topic drew my attention, and the second one, it was and it still is a problem in my country in the education setting. So I don't know. Okay, it's working. So before talking about diving deeper into these topics, I have the responsibility to talk about what these are. Like I said before, the epistemological beliefs, in a simpler term, is that the way people see knowledge and the way we pursue knowledge. And teaching learning conceptions is about our preferred ways of teaching learning styles, systems, and the role of teacher and students. Okay, why is it important in education setting? Is because how people, sorry, I forgot to mention that my participants are student teachers. Those are students who will become teachers in basic education. And how we are approaching our lessons, how the teacher is, teaching in a classroom, all of these things, these factors are influenced by how these individual persons, people, believe about the epistemology. So I really want to do that. And the background story, the background of the background, is my PhD research is a mixed method sequential explanatory study. Always forgot, is it explanatory or exploratory? Because I started with quantitative, like asking to fill out the questionnaire, and then based on the results, I formulate, or how do I say, I developed an interview question for qualitative phase, and that's why that name. And that is the conceptual framework. Based on the previous theories, I conceptualized that if someone has naive or kind of lower epistemological belief, their belief about knowledge, then he or she is more likely to have or to adopt a traditional teaching learning perceptions, which is like teacher is the transferer of knowledge, and the students are the receiver. They just receive. The teacher will give you all the valuable knowledge. And if a person has sophisticated or more or less higher level of epistemological beliefs, they might have constructivist approach on teaching learning. This is the background of my, where I am from, the country's education system. I forgot to mention that I'm from Myanmar, a Southeast Asian country. Maybe some of you have heard about the tragic history and stories and what is going on there. So as we can imagine, we had only 5 years of civilian government and, Renaissance period. And we were in the dark age. We are now back in the dark age. So not a surprise, the education system was deeply rooted in exam-oriented style. Like, we just focus on how to get highest score in this exam. Our concern is not about how to educate our students. And starting from 2016, we had a major education reform during that Renaissance period. And the main aim of the reform is to have the constructivist style of teaching learning environment and the curriculum. So to achieve that aim, we need to comprehend the student and the teachers and the future teachers who are student teachers. What about their epistemological beliefs? How do they think? How do they perceive knowledge? And how do they approach the teaching learning situations? So this is the story. And this is the boring part, in my opinion, of the systematic literature review. Why am I doing this? Because I want to provide more information on the prevailing trends, what is happening right now on my topic, and the theoretical frameworks and key findings. And the methodology is not a surprise. Of course, it's a systematic literature review, and most scholars rely on this preferred Prisma 2020. And this is the style of reporting. That's what I'm going to use in writing this full paper about that. And the keywords are obviously epistemology, epistemological beliefs, teaching learning perceptions, student teachers, teacher education reform. And I search based on my exclusion and inclusion criteria on these 3 platforms. And I ended up with 15 articles, 15 research papers. The time period was during the last 2 decades. And the findings. Sorry. So why I want to do a systematic literature review, not just normal like narrative literature review, is because when I look for the systematic literature review on my topic, I don't find many. There are a few meta-analyses and some systematic literature reviews, but not so many. And during the past 2 decades, but there are tons of research on this topic. Not just systematic literature review. That's why I wanted to do that. And the initial finding, because I'm still in the process, the initial finding of the review, of the literature review, is that there is a heterogeneity in terms of research methods. Like some researchers use quantitative approach, purely quantitative. Some use qualitative. Some use mixed method. And I am in the mixed method way. And like I hypothesized or I perceptualized, there is a relationship between these 2 variables. I don't want to repeat the terms again and again. It's kind of tongue-twisting and boring. So there is a relationship between these 2 variables, and epistemological beliefs are linked to both perceptions about teaching learning styles or situations, traditional and constructivist. So there is a link. So, I'm not doing something crazy. There is a future. And there are differences. That is what interests me most, is that there are differences depending on gender, your class, your specialized subjects, and which university you are attending. There are differences in your beliefs and your perceptions depending on these factors. And based on my findings, because I have done my quantitative part, and there are differences depending on different context. Like even in Asian cultural context, because last year we had a Learning from Asia in Education conference, and I also presented there about my topic and my findings from Asia as method perspective, and that gave me a chance to do an interreferencing, which I had never thought before. So I found out that we got sometimes in some way there are similar results and very different findings regarding these gender, which class you are in, the specialized subjects, etc. So there is a link and there are differences. And then the relationship, of course, between your belief about knowledge and the way you approach your teaching and your teaching competences. So all of these are found in the literature. And this is the conclusion. Of course, we need to do broad and, intensive research on this topic in different culture, especially because I haven't done my qualitative analysis yet, but in the initial analysis, I had a look, and we have cultural influences or cultural, how do we call that? Cultural topic, from the codes. So we need to do this in different cultures, and I had thought about doing researching this topic in Hungary, but I hadn't put any effort in it. But presenting here, and I was thinking maybe I can have my shot here as well let's see how it is, how Hungarians or Hungarian student teachers believe or think about knowledge, and how do they perceive knowledge, and how do they approach, which way they prefer to, which kind of teaching learning situation they prefer. So, before this, can we switch to the game? I hope everybody is not, I didn't bore you yet, and I would love all of you to play this fun little game. And there is a disclaimer. I am not collecting any data and doing any research here. It's just a game. Yes, and these, all of these are some items from my questionnaire, which I developed, a research instrument, just to see. As I said, I'm not collecting any data, so this is not my real questionnaire, because my questionnaire is in 5-point Likert scale, and here we have only 3 choices, multiple choice. And let's see how we are, because epistemological belief is a spectrum. In the, let's say, 1990s, people believe that it's black and white. You either have naive belief or you have sophisticated one. But later on, we found out that, no, it can be multi-dimensional. You can have higher belief in some dimension. You can still have lower or naive belief. I don't want to use naive. It's also controversial. Still arguing with my supervisor. So, are you ready? If you are not familiar with Mentimeter, you can go to menti.com, or you can scan this. If you can zoom in and scan it, and it will bring you there. If you are so far, then go to www.menti.com, and there is the code 243255553. This is working, right? Yeah. Are we here now? Are we ready? Yeah? I'm not very familiar with this. I always use Kahoot, but Kahoot shows the participants, like even nickname. You can see your name here, and I feel like for this kind of questions, I wouldn't be comfortable to see my name here. So Mentimeter is anonymous. We won't reveal your name or anything, even nicknames. So if all of you are ready, can I continue? Shall we go ahead? This is just a test, where I am from. It's not related with my research or anything. This is just a test if this is working, how many participants do I have for the game? Because I am going back and forth, I think. You are to the game questions, right? How do I fix this? Okay, here? Which question are you? Because I just click here and... okay. Can I... Oh, I see. All right. Here we are. We have 19 participants, and... Oh, yeah. I think I will read the statement. There is only one best solution for a specific problem, and if you feel like, yeah, I agree, then it's, yeah, we have 2. And no, it's not. There can be many different solutions. Then we have 14, and kind of, they are like the middle of the spectrum. We have 3 people in the middle, and 2, and how many? 14 on the extreme, on the edges. And I'm happy to see that 14 of us think there are many different solutions to a specific problems. This is one of the dimensions from epistemological beliefs. It's about simplicity of knowledge. We don't think knowledge is simple, it's complex. All right, can we go back? I don't know if you submit, and where are you now? This question? I think I shouldn't go too fast. How about now? Okay. All of you, just stay in one slide. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's such a shame. How about we just do it verbally? When I encounter when I encounter difficulty solving a problem, the best way, the most, effective way is to seek assistance from the teacher. Do you feel like, yeah, or mm-mm, or I will stay in the middle. I don't want to decide. Yeah. No. Okay, there are many now, I think. All right, this is the dimension of the source of knowledge. This dimension is where I find differences from the results from my country and the other Asian countries. Because people from my country, the student teachers from my country, they rely heavily on the teachers or authorities, parents, regarding the knowledge. Like, where do you get knowledge? I listen to my teacher, I listen to my parents. And the other Asian countries, where we have similar backgrounds, but they don't have this heavy reliance on authorities. So, yeah, if you think, yeah, then you are more on relying on the authority for knowledge. All knowledge acquired in school is directly applicable in our real life situation. I think this is so obvious, right? I feel stupid to put it in the questionnaire. Of course, not all of them. So this is the validation of your knowledge dimension. And this one is also seems stupid. Our ability to learn is fixed and innate, which means that if you were born with, I don't know, 70 IQ, you will stay with that. You will be a loser in your life. This kind of belief, and I hope it's nah. And but to my surprise, some participants think that this is true. They agree with that. And they have strong examples, real-life examples to back this up. All right. Thank you very much for your kind participation and attendance. And can we get back to my slide? Not any additional information, just for the advertisement. There is a QR code to my ORC ID. There is also my ResearchGate linked on that page. If you want to, I don't know, conduct more research on this area, that's what I'm doing, and that's what I can do. I think I cannot do anything better than doing this. So you can contact me and we can explore more, and maybe we can do research in Hungary, and let's find out how Hungarian student teachers think. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation and all the ones we've had so far. As I mentioned, we're going to have our lunch break now. It's about 1 hour, so we'll be back here at 1:30 to start our next panel on politics and youth. You can find your lunch over there along the wall, right? Yes. Okay. Have a lovely meal.